365 Radio, 365 Sports. Thanks to Xavier Newman Johnson for his time as he's flying back from his time at the Shrine Bowl. Somebody that, in fact, was all over that. Josh Carney, he covers the Steelers and does quite a bit up in Pennsylvania, also a part of the USA Today network as well. He joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Josh, we just had Xavier on, and obviously Taekwon Thornton, you were there. And then I noticed that you put up a lot of various things when it comes to the NFL draft, not just covering the Steelers, but what were your thoughts about what you saw from Taekwon Thornton? We'll start with him, the Baylor wide receiver.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for having me on. Taekwon was a guy coming in that I had done a little bit of work on, just knowing he's coming from the Big 12, from a good offense in Baylor. When I got his measurables, I was a little concerned. Obviously, he has, I think, 7.8-inch hand size, which is historically low for the receiver position, but he wowed everyone in attendance throughout the entire week. He was a physical receiver, very good route runner, consistently created separation, and the hand size was never an issue. This guy went up and made plays in contested catch situations, ripped the ball away from a few defensive backs here and there. He was arguably the best receiver there throughout the week, right there with Oklahoma State's Tay Martin and Miami's Charleston Rambo. But, a guy that, I was high on coming in, and, he did nothing to cause me to drop my my thought process on him. He very solid receiver. I'm sure if he gets a combine invite here, his name will start to spread a bit more.
Josh, Xavier Newman Johnson was a guy who kind of had an up and down career, but finished on an up, a big up at Baylor. What did you think of what you saw from him this week, and where might you slot him going in the draft?
Yeah, he was arguably the best lineman here as well, right there with North Dakota State's Cordell Bolson. The big thing with Xavier Newman Johnson was his versatility. I know that he had started the week out at center, and I think by last night in the Shrine Bowl itself, he had played left guard and right guard, which is what he did at Baylor. He was absolutely fantastic throughout the week. Very athletic lineman, good hands in tight, was able to handle power. I think a team is going to fall in love with him just due to his interior versatility, and I would not be shocked to see him come off the board, early day 3, in that 4th round range. Just a ton of experience, a very smart, cerebral kid. Just a great interview there as well. Had a lot of people talking on the sidelines. A lot of scouts and executives were mentioning his name and just how well he was performing, handling multiple positions.
Well, as we continue down the list of Baylor guys, a couple of the others like Newman Johnson and Thornton seem to make a lot of waves. The other two were a little bit more quiet, but Treston Ebner, obviously a very versatile athlete, running back, special teams. Didn't really see much in the way of, last night that turning into, a big game or anything like that. But what were your thoughts on Treston Ebner and how he fits in at the next level?
Yeah, I think he's going to just be a solid number 2, number 3 type running back. Brings some power. He's able to catch the football out of the backfield. The special teams abilities will definitely help him catch on to a roster and hold on for hopefully a lengthy career. He kind of seemed overwhelmed at times when he was out on the practice field. I know he was picking up a new system, working with new quarterbacks. And those quarterbacks did him no favors out of the backfield whatsoever. But Tristan wasn't really able to showcase his abilities and show what he was able to do at Baylor throughout his career, just due to the practice setting. Obviously did not have a chance to really showcase his talent in the game last night. But, that's a guy who's going to, fly under the radar, and then someone's going to pick him, middle of day 3, late day 3, or priority free agent, and they're going to be very happy with just the overall skill set he brings to the position.
How much does the conversation about back to Xavier Newman Johnson, that he was thrust into it immediately because Matt Rule's first team had 6 scholarship offensive linemen, and then 2 years ago, the offensive line was a mess. They didn't know from week to week who could practice, much less by the end of the week who could play because of COVID. And then to see what he did and what Eric Mateos did, how much does that resiliency make a difference at all when you're looking at him as an NFL team?
I think that's huge. The thing is, how do these guys handle adversity? And obviously, he was thrown into the fire right away. Some guys, in a sense, they sink or swim in those situations. And I think he was able to stay afloat. And then once Eric Mateos came in, all that he was able to do at BYU in his career. I think that was a huge addition to that room. He mentioned Coach Mateos and how impactful he was on his career. But I do think that adversity and undergoing a number of changes, he had told us he had to learn 4 different playbooks in 4 years at 3 different positions. I think that type of adversity and the way that he was able to grow year after year, put together the season he put together in 2021, and then put the performance together that he put up in Las Vegas this past week is going to be great for him, and I'm sure NFL teams are really going to value that.
Have you seen anything at the quarterback position that would make you excited at all?
No, not from this class. Not of the group that was in Las Vegas. I know that the Browns' E.J. Perry won the team MVP or the offensive MVP, had a really good performance. But, yeah, I think the frustrating thing for a lot of the running backs and a lot of the receivers, tight ends throughout the week was just they felt limited by the quarterback play. I know that Taekwon Thornton, there were times in team sessions on all 22 where he would beat his guy cleanly and be wide open, and the quarterback wouldn't even see him. So I don't see anything with this crop of quarterbacks in Las Vegas, but all eyes are on Mobile right now.
The last Baylor member that was a part of that roster, he was probably the quietest in terms of being talked about throughout the week, but cornerback Kalyn Barnes, what were your thoughts on what you saw from Barnes?
Yeah, that was a guy that coming in very quiet, didn't know much about him, but once they got on the practice field into the one-on-one setting, the team setting, he was able to use his size, length, and physicality and really hold his own. And, one of my colleagues that was there with me just continued to mention him as one of his winners. He does very well at pressing guys, working into the sideline, using his sideline as a secondary defender. And that length, I think, is going to have teams very, very intrigued. Obviously the cornerback position seems to be going that way in the NFL to kind of handle these height, weight, speed guys at receiver. And Kalyn had a really solid week. I know that he struggled at times against Tay Martin from Oklahoma State in 1-versus-1, but he quietly put together a really solid week, which kind of matches his personality because he did not have much to say when talking with the media, which just kind of matched what we saw on the practice field.
And that kind of matched what we saw in Waco for 4 years too. Just so you know, he was never a big talker. Yeah.
Yeah, he was always kind of just rather not even be. Well, it doesn't mean he doesn't have a personality, whatever. But there's some guys that are different than others. I know the Senior Bowl. That's where all the focus is today. Jalen Petrie and Abram Smith were both honored for what they did this week. Abram Smith at running back was a great story, and of course Petrie as well. Josh, your thoughts about from what you've seen from them, and also just what you've known about them as they now head into this stretch when it comes to the NFL draft.
Yeah, Petrie's a guy that you talk about versatility in the secondary. I know that some people want to play in the corner, some people want to make him the nickel corner. I think he played some safety there in Mobile this past week, but that's just a guy that, jack of all trades, you want on your roster, you want on your defense. He brings it all. As far as Abram Smith, that was a guy that, I'd seen highlights of throughout the season. Haven't had a chance to really dive deep into his film, but the thing that stands out is the physicality and the speed, and to have those two types of playmakers in the backfield in Baylor and Smith and Ebner last year, that had to be a ton of fun to watch for a fan base. But Petrie's a guy I think you're going to see continue to rise, up draft boards, and I would not be shocked to see him as a top 35, 40 player off the board for the 2022 draft.
Is that because everybody's base is nickel and he can flourish in that role?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If this were 10 years ago where base was truly base, I think his value would be pushed down a bit, but his ability to be that nickel guy that can, handle himself in the box, can handle the slot receiver, still bring that physicality against the run, that causes his value to skyrocket.
So I know there's other events coming up. Obviously a lot of these guys will get combine invites. There's of course pro days and private workouts as well. But just in terms of the road to the draft, I mean, how much importance do you think teams place on all-star weeks and what they see in these practices?
It genuinely depends on the front office that you're referring to. I mean, just covering the Steelers alone, they value the All-Star weekend. You know, that's where they really dive into the draft process. You know, typically they're playing late into the season, so they get a later start than most teams. But, you know, the All-Star process is a place to go and see some of the best players. Some of these staffs, like the Shrine Bowl staff, did a fantastic job finding some of these smaller school guys to bring into situations like this. But I think it certainly plays a part. But just because you go to an All-Star event like this, whether it's, you know, the NFLPA Bowl or the Honolulu Bowl or the Hulu Bowl, you know, the Shrine Bowl, Hula Bowl, then you have the Senior Bowl. Like, just because you go to these, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get drafted, but it certainly helps. And I think having the week that some of these Baylor guys did here in Las Vegas is really going to help their draft stock, especially Xavier Newman-Johnson. I mean, I can't state it enough how blown away I was by him live. I mean, he's certainly one of the smaller guys that will enter the league along the offensive line, but he more than held his own and was just really impressive throughout the week.
You know what's interesting about that? Josh Carney, again, with the Beaver County Times in Pennsylvania, covers the Steelers, among other things, a huge NFL draft guy, is that he could have, like, if Mateos hadn't shown up, he could have just, like, gone into oblivion and never had this chance. He could have just disappeared.
Yep. Yeah, and that's, again, like, when I sat down with him for a one-on-one, he mentioned Coach Mateos, and it was just like he kind of, in a sense, saved my career. He opened my eyes to things I needed to work on. And when you have a guy like Mateos come in and he has the pedigree that he does from BYU, we saw that. You have to listen to that guy and really just take credit to Newman-Johnson. I mean, you know, he could have been stuck in his ways. He could have been frustrated having to deal with another coaching staff, another playbook, but he bought in, and I think he completely unlocked his potential.
Yeah, just go back if you want to see a jump. Just watch 10 plays from 2020. That's all you'll need to see, and see how bad it was, and then how he swung back up. You do cover the Steelers. What is the sense you get around them about what they want to do at quarterback?
Yeah, you know, they keep telling the media and the fans that it's going to be Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins, you know, kind of battling it out. They may add a veteran like a Marcus Mariota. I get the sense, though, just based off the work that they're doing in Mobile right now and some of the buzz that I'm hearing, that they really like Liberty's Malik Willis. They really like Cincinnati's Desmond Ridder, and they're very high on North Carolina's Sam Howell. I know that the easy connection seems to be Kenny Pickett from Pitt because he shared a facility with the Steelers right in the backyard. But, you know, Kevin Colbert, Brandon Hunt, who's the pro scouting coordinator, and then obviously head coach Mike Tomlin, they all have different favorite quarterbacks in this class. So I think it'll come down to Willis, Ridder, or Howell. And if they want Willis, they're probably going to have to trade up like they did for Devin Bush a few years ago.
A couple of receivers I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned Tay Martin earlier. We saw a great bit of him at Oklahoma State. And also Charleston Rambo finished his career at Miami but started off at Oklahoma. Texas native, followed him in high school. What are your thoughts on those two prospects?
Rambo really stood out in a big way. I know obviously when he transferred from Oklahoma to Miami, there were question marks of, you know, what was this going to do to his career, because he was going from a situation that had Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams to De'Aaron King. I think he kind of left out in a sense getting Tyler Van Dyke due to King's injury. He really stood out this past week, and I have to do a further dive into his tape, but just a guy that was a smooth route runner, you know, could play through contact, was able to create a ton of separation and really kind of put himself in that discussion of best receiver in Vegas. Tay Martin, I mean, you come from an air raid system like Washington State and then Oklahoma State. You're not a finished product by any means at receiver, and he'll admit that. His route tree is extremely limited, but I think the thing that stood out to me throughout the entire week was his ability to get clean releases off the line. Guys were testing him consistently when it comes to press coverage, especially Kalyn Barnes. And Tay Martin was able to get clean releases time after time. The route running will certainly come. I think he's going to be that day three receiver that you know, a team takes and thinks, okay, we can develop this guy. And I think he will have a very, very productive career. He knows how to create separation, even if he does not have the full route tree at his disposal at this moment.
Hey, Josh Carney with us again. Josh, one more thing from me, and Craig and Paul might have follow-ups, is where is Terrell? I know Bernard's battled an injury this week, but he was such a spectacular player, and he's had that in the past as well. As far as Terrell Bernard, where do you see him in the NFL? Pretty much wherever he needs to be?
Yeah, pretty much wherever he needs to be, honestly. I know the injury has caused some concerns. He's missed the Senior Bowl this week, but he's just a guy, again, similar to Jalen Petrie. Like, a defense is going to want him because he can play multiple positions. He doesn't have to come off the field, when they go to 4 and 5 receiver sets or anything like that. He can stay on the field when they go into 12 personnel or 22 personnel. He's just a guy that makes plays, and hopefully he can get past his injury bug because I think he's a fantastic player. He's the guy that I actually started to watch first when it came to the draft process coming out of Baylor, just because I had heard the name consistently on Saturdays for the last few years. So, yeah, he's going to be kind of that Swiss Army knife that can play in the box, could handle, playing out on a slot receiver if he needs to, rushing off the edge. Just a fantastic player, and I wish people could see him in Mobile this week.
I could ask you about a million other guys, but I know that you got to go, so I'll just throw another Big 12 name out there for you. Dawson Deaton, offensive lineman at Texas Tech. I saw a couple of tweets referring to him throughout the week. What did you see from the Red Raider?
Dawson kind of struggled there at times. Snapping the football was a concern. I know he had a bad snap in the game last night as well. A lot of that had to do with guys being right over top of him. Obviously, Marquand McCall from Kentucky was the man over him last night that caused the bad snap in the game. But he just seemed like he was a little overwhelmed with size and power, especially head up. But he looked very athletic. I know that he got some reps at center as well. Was rotating in and out of center and left and right guard. I think right now, without doing more work on him, just based off of what I saw in Vegas, he's probably a late day 3 priority free agent guy at this point. But again, that versatility is going to help him stick when it comes to training camp battles and roster cutdowns.
Josh, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, Josh, I was just curious what your thoughts were on the move to Las Vegas for the event. I know that the Shrine Bowl with Galco and company are trying to really bump that event up, but just what were your thoughts on kind of how, all that went in Las Vegas, the atmosphere, the pairing with the Pro Bowl and all that?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. That was the first year I had been to the Shrine Bowl. Obviously, it was in St. Petersburg, Florida, for a few years there. But this was very well done by the Shrine Bowl staff. They were able to coordinate with UNLV. We got to take in practice 2 days at the Fertitta Football Complex, which is a beautiful complex. I wish UNLV was a little better in football to kind of get that exposure. But just a fantastic job by the Shrine Bowl staff to have over, I think, 115 players. There was apparently more than 650 scouts and front office personnel from the NFL, the CFL, XFL, and USFL. Just a fantastic event. Allegiant Stadium is all that it is hyped up to be. I mean, that thing is truly the Death Star. It is out of this world. It is overwhelming walking into it as well. But, yeah, they just did a fantastic job. A lot of these players were so grateful for the opportunity and were just having a blast. And Vegas was very interesting.
Yeah, it can be. Now, you have at times been able to talk a little bit with Matt Rule. I know there's a connection there as well. Have you spoken with him lately?
I have not. No, I have not. Not since his Temple days. But, yeah, he's a Penn State guy. I grew up in the area. But I have not had a chance to talk with him since his Temple days. But certainly pulling for him in the NFL. I know it's been a little rough for him lately. But,
yeah,
very good guy, a great coach, gets the most out of his players. And hopefully he turns things around in Carolina.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. He's looking for the talent that you're talking about as well. Josh, thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate your time. It's good stuff. Josh Carney joined us. Again, he covers the Steelers, but started seeing some of what we have from him on my timeline. And then, we had Matt Al-Khair on earlier this week. And go-to people that we'll have as we continue on closer and closer towards the Combine, Pro Days, and much more.
Yeah, it's great.